So I'm going to explain what you do if you get a P4 error code on a MrCool condenser unit and where the outdoor unit has actually failed. So this is not a P4 error code that you get when you install it wrong. This is a P4 error code that you get after the thing has been running for a long time and eventually fails. Now, MrCool is not particularly good with their customer service. They take forever to answer, so I went ahead and ordered a new outdoor unit from eBay, and this is how you install it. So this is the MrCool product number. It applies to other outdoor units as well. So here I'm evacuating the lines. What you notice here is I've removed the MrCool quick connect lines and I've flared them, and I'll show you how that all's done here. Here is my vacuum pump. I've got a low power CPS vacuum pump. You don't need a big pump for this. It just takes longer if you've got a smaller pump. This is my setup. Now, if you look closely, you can see that I've got a number of valves shut off here to make things easier. This blue valve goes to my refrigerant, which I'm loading the lines with. This black valve is to my vacuum pump. You need to shut this off because you don't want refrigerant going to the sensor of the vacuum valve. And this yellow valve goes to the vacuum pump, which I'm going to need to shut off. You're going to have to keep your vacuum pump running the whole time. There's an awful mistake that novices make, and that is that they turn the vacuum pump off while they're doing this. And then what happens is that the vacuum will actually suck vacuum oil out of the vacuum pump into your lines, which creates a big mess, and then you have to go and clean everything out again. So that line goes to my refrigerant. Here's my refrigerant, which I'm weighing on a refrigerant scale. This is 2 or 4 pounds, I think. You can get these online. I'm going to lay it flat over to measure the amount that I'm putting in. Now, the critical thing with this operation is how much to put in your lines. You're evacuating the lines, but the compressor is a new compressor. The compressor is already charged with about 4 pounds of refrigerant, but the lines are not charged because we're evacuating them. And normally, when you install this first time, the lines have some charge in them, and the evaporator coil has some charge. Because we're vacuuming these out, we need to know how many ounces to put into the evacuated lines and evaporator coil. To get this number, you have to phone MrCool. They're the only people that know. I phoned them and I said, for 16 foot of lines and an evaporator coil, how much refrigerant must I put in? And they said exactly 3 ounces. So 3 ounces is your number. It could be up to 5 ounces, they told me, if you've got longer lines. You have to give them your line lengths and they will calculate it for you. So you don't need a fancy scale, you just need a fridge scale because this is a very light, it's not one of your big cans. So that's where I'm going to open it up. Now when I open it up, I first actually open that valve a little bit just to flush out any air that might be in the vacuum or the supply line. So right now as I'm vacuuming it, there should be no air anywhere in the system. And when I'm ready to charge, I'll shut off the valves and then I'll open up the blue valve. So I'll shut off those 2 valves and I'll open up the blue valve. That's how I'll charge the system. Now to flare your lines is quite easy. You just need this flaring tool. There's the product number on the top left. Follow the instructions meticulously. Make sure that you deburr when you cut your old quick connect fittings off. Be very careful when you deburr that you don't scratch the inside of the pipe. If you scratch the inside of the pipe, then you won't get a seal. I used a special bit for deburring. I don't know how else you can do it. You can probably get a special tool. This deburring kit is the nicest one I could find after reading the reviews, but it's a little bit expensive. I mean, this flaring kit is a bit expensive, but it's the nicest one I could find. It produces very nice flares. Now what you're going to need is you're going to need the flare fitting nuts. The flare nuts you can get from McMaster Car. The two flare nuts are the 16 threads per inch and the 20 threads per inch. The 20 thread per inch is for the 1/4 inch line, and for the 1/2 inch line you're going to need the 16 threads per inch. And that will cost you about 20 bucks, I think. So yeah, you can see the instructions is very simple to follow. Okay, your flare nuts must be tightened according to these instructions. MrCool happens to have in another PDF somewhere all the different torque settings for the flare nuts. Even though this information is not in the DIY split air conditioning, but it's in another one. So if you look there, for 1/4 inch we need 15 to 30 Newton meters. If 1/2 inch we need 45 to 50 Newton meters. Okay, so that's the old line that I've cut off. Quick connect, the quick connect part of this is now in the trash. To tighten the lines, to torque them to the correct torque specification, you're going to need one of these crow's foot, adjustable crow's foot wrenches, or the crow's foot wrench of the right size. I have the adjustable one, which works perfectly well. And there's a torque wrench to do the same. Okay, so that's the nut that is not non-standard, and there I've torqued it and tightened it down. And that's how it's all done. So you've got to do this with your valves while you're actually vacuuming, because there's a small amount of air that's actually in the valve. Now you'll notice there I've got a valve fitting removal tool over here. So I can shut this off, and I've shut this off already, and I removed this valve and put it back in again. Obviously when you put the valve back in again, a small amount of air can get into the system. So before I did that, a little bit of gas escaped. This is after I put the refrigerant, a little bit of gas escaped to make sure that there was no air in the line. Now I evacuated this at below 500 micron for a couple of hours at least, because you've got to evacuate it all the way through down to this other end of this line, and there's no opening in the other end of the line. So to really get a vacuum, you've got to wait a very long time. The new units, and there's the old unit, which is going into the trash. Okay, so good practice with this checking for leaks is to shut off that valve and to leave it for 10 full minutes and see if the vacuum stays below 500 micron. In my case, it did stay below 500 micron, so that's good, and I can proceed. I also did a bubble test by taking some leak detection soap and putting it over all the joints and connections to see if any leaks came up, and everything looked good. So my air conditioning is working. I think I've covered everything that you need to do. This job takes quite a few hours. You can see it does need some equipment, but pretty much well within the scope of any DIY person. It does not require any pressure testers or any other testing equipment that you normally need for AC jobs, but it does require a little bit of savvy. I mean, the vacuum pump is a bit tricky to use when you use it for the first time. And you got to be very careful about how you set up your valves and make sure that everything's sealed before you start vacuuming. And that can be quite daunting the first time you try it because it never seems to draw a vacuum. And that's what happens when you're a novice. But I mean, within about 20 minutes or half an hour, I'm sure that anyone can figure this out. So good luck replacing your compressor unit and have a nice day.